The bullet hole went straight through the center of the book. Entry wound on the front cover, exit wound on the back. Clean. Precise. Sarah Mitchell held the Bible in both hands, her fingers trembling as she traced the jagged tear in the leather. She'd found it 20 minutes ago at the Goodwill on Fletcher Street, wedged between a cookbook and a water-damaged copy of Tom Sawyer. $5. She opened it carefully. The bullet had passed through every single page, from Genesis to Revelation. But it hadn't destroyed the book. You could still read most of it. The hole was there, but the pages around it were intact, and on the inside front cover, written in fountain pen ink that had faded to brown, were 2 sentences. "This saved me. I couldn't save him." Sarah bought it without thinking. Just handed over $5 and walked out into the October rain with the Bible tucked under her coat. She didn't know why. She wasn't religious. Hadn't been to church since her grandmother's funeral 15 years ago. But something about those words, about the bullet hole, about the weight of the book in her hands, pulled at her in a way she couldn't explain. At home, she set it on her kitchen table and stared at it. The cover was worn, the leather cracked with age. Military issue, she thought. She'd seen enough of them in antique stores. Her grandfather had one. Same size, same shape. Sarah pulled the Bible closer and examined the bullet hole under her desk lamp. The edges were burned slightly, charred black from the heat. She'd read somewhere that bullets traveled so fast they could set paper on fire. This one hadn't. It had just punched through all 200 pages. She turned to the first page. The handwriting was there again, clearer under the light. "This saved me. I couldn't save him." And below it, in smaller letters, almost invisible, PFC James Morris, 82nd Airborne, 1944. Sarah grabbed her phone and searched James Morris, 82nd Airborne, 1944. The results came up immediately. Private First Class James Morris, age 21. Killed in action, September 17th, 1944. Operation Market Garden, the Netherlands. Body never recovered. Listed as missing in action. No known grave. Survived by parents Thomas and Eleanor Morris. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. One photograph accompanied the article. A young man in uniform, dark hair, serious eyes, standing at attention with a slight smile. Sarah read it twice. Killed September 17th, 1944. Body never recovered. But if James Morris died that day, then who wrote the message? And whose bullet went through this Bible? 3 weeks earlier, Sarah had been cleaning out her late uncle's house in Pittsburgh. He died at 93 with no wife, no kids, just a house full of things nobody wanted. Most of it went to donation, furniture, clothes, books. Her uncle had been a reader. She'd found a stack of old military books in the attic, memoirs, histories, personal accounts from World War II. Her uncle had served too, Army, Europe. He never talked about it much, but he'd kept the books. Sarah had boxed them up and dropped them at Goodwill on her way out of town. She remembered that box, remembered setting it on the donation counter. One of the volunteers had looked through it and nodded. "We'll get these on the shelves," he'd said. Now, sitting in her apartment 3 states away, Sarah wondered if the Bible had been in that box, if her uncle had kept it all these years, if he'd known James Morris, if he'd been there when the bullet went through the book. She called the Pittsburgh Goodwill the next morning. "I'm trying to track down where a book came from," she said. "A Bible with a bullet hole." The woman on the phone was quiet. "Oh, that one. Yeah, came in with military books, estate donation." Sarah's stomach dropped. "That was me. I dropped those off." "Oh, well, then you bought back your own donation." Sarah hung up and stared at the Bible. Her uncle had owned this, had kept it for 70 years, had never mentioned it, never told her, never told anyone. She opened her laptop and started searching again, this time for her uncle. Robert Mitchell, Army, World War II, 82nd Airborne. Nothing. Robert Mitchell wasn't 82nd Airborne. He was 101st. Different division, different drop zones, different battles. So how did he end up with James Morris's Bible? Sarah found her uncle's old discharge papers in a folder she'd saved. 101st Airborne Division, Normandy, Holland, Bastogne. He'd been there for all of it. But Operation Market Garden, September 1944, that was when the 82nd and 101st had fought side by side. Different objectives, but close. Close enough that maybe, in the chaos, paths had crossed. She called the National Archives, spent 3 hours on hold, finally got through to a researcher. "I'm looking for information about 2 soldiers," Sarah said. "PFC James Morris, 82nd Airborne, and Private Robert Mitchell, 101st Airborne, both in Holland, September 1944. The researcher typed, paused, typed more. "Okay," he said slowly. "I've got Morris, KIA, September 17th, 1944, near Nijmegen. Body not recovered. And Mitchell, you said 101st? "Yes." Mitchell was wounded September 18th, 1944, Nijmegen. Shrapnel wound to the chest, evacuated to field hospital, survived, returned to unit October 1944. September 18th, 1 day after Morris was killed. Same location. Sarah's hands shook. "Is there any record of how he was wounded? Any details?" "Let me check." More typing. "Here, after-action report. Says Mitchell was hit during a German counterattack. Shrapnel from a mortar. But there's a note here. Says he was saved by a Bible in his breast pocket. Took most of the impact. Medic noted it in the report." Sarah looked at the Bible on her table. At the bullet hole. "The report says shrapnel?" "Yes." "Not a bullet?" "No." "Shrapnel, why?" Sarah didn't answer. She thanked him and hung up. She picked up the Bible and examined the hole again. It was too clean for shrapnel. Too precise. This was a bullet. No question. But if the report said shrapnel, and if the Bible had been in Robert Mitchell's pocket when he was hit, then why was there a bullet hole? She turned back to the first page. Read the message again. "This saved me. I couldn't save him." And suddenly, horribly, she understood. This wasn't Robert Mitchell's Bible. This was James Morris's Bible, and the bullet that went through it didn't hit Robert. It hit James. Sarah grabbed her phone and called her aunt, her uncle's sister, the only family member who might remember. "Aunt Claire, did Uncle Robert ever talk about the war? About Holland?" Claire was quiet for a long time. "Not much. Why?" "Did he ever mention someone named James Morris?" The silence stretched longer. When Claire spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "Once, I was maybe 10 years old. We were at church. The pastor was talking about sacrifice, about laying down your life for your friends, and Robert just stood up and walked out. My mother went after him. I followed. He was outside crying. I'd never seen him cry. My mother asked what was wrong and he said a name, James. He said, 'I should have saved James.'" Sarah's throat tightened. "What happened then?" "My mother took him home. We never talked about it again. He never went back to church, not once in 50 years. Sarah hung up and sat with the Bible for a long time. She thought about 2 young men in Holland. Thought about September 17th, 1944. Thought about Operation Market Garden, one of the bloodiest failures of the war. Thought about paratroopers dropping into enemy territory and fighting for bridges they'd never hold. And she thought about a Bible in a breast pocket and a bullet that went through it. She pulled up everything she could find about September 17th, 1944, near Nijmegen. The 82nd Airborne had dropped to take the bridge. The fighting had been brutal. House to house, street to street. The Germans had been waiting. Casualties were high. And somewhere in that chaos, James Morris had been killed. Body never recovered. But now Sarah knew where his Bible had gone. Into Robert Mitchell's pocket. She called the National Archives again. Different researcher this time. "I need to request service records," she said, "for PFC James Morris and Private Robert Mitchell, both 1944. It took 6 weeks. When the files arrived, Sarah spread them across her living room floor. James Morris's file was thin. Basic information, enlistment date, training, deployment, and then the final entry, killed in action, September 17, 1944. Circumstances, unknown, body not recovered. But Robert Mitchell's file was thicker, much thicker, and buried in the medical reports from September 1944, she found it. A handwritten note from the field medic. Patient presented with shrapnel wound to left chest. Bible in breast pocket took most of impact. Shrapnel embedded in leather cover. Removed Bible before treatment. Patient requested Bible be kept. Says it belonged to PFC Morris. KIA yesterday. Patient was carrying it when hit. Sarah read it 3 more times. Patient was carrying it when hit. James Morris had given Robert his Bible. Or Robert had taken it after James died. Either way, Robert had been carrying it the next day when the mortar hit. And the Bible had saved him. Just like the message said. This saved me. But what about the bullet hole? The medic's report said shrapnel, not a bullet. Sarah examined the hole again. Looked at the scorch marks. Looked at the way it punched through clean. And then she understood. There were 2 impacts. The shrapnel from September 18th that saved Robert, and the bullet from September 17 that didn't save James. She found the answer in a footnote in a book about Market Garden. A single paragraph about September 17th. About a platoon from the 82nd that got pinned down in a farmhouse outside Nijmegen. About how they'd fought for 6 hours. About how only 3 men survived. PFC James Morris wasn't one of them. The book had a testimonial from one of the survivors. Sergeant William Hayes. Morris took a round to the chest, point blank, threw his Bible. We all carried them, but his didn't stop it. Bullet went clean through. He died in my arms. I took his tags, took his Bible too. Thought maybe I'd send it to his family. But I never did. Lost it somewhere in Holland. Never forgave myself for that. Sarah sat back. William Hayes had taken the Bible. But he'd lost it. And somehow, it had ended up with Robert Mitchell. Had Robert found it? Had Hayes given it to him? The records didn't say. But Robert had carried it. Had been wearing it when he got hit the next day. And the shrapnel that should have killed him hit the Bible instead. The same Bible that hadn't saved James. This saved me. I couldn't save him. Robert Mitchell had lived with that for 70 years. Had carried the Bible that failed to save his friend, but succeeded in saving him. Had written that message on the inside cover and never opened it again. Had kept it in a box in his attic and never told anyone. Because how do you explain that? How do you live with the guilt of surviving because of a dead man's Bible? Sarah called Sergeant Hayes' family, found his daughter in North Carolina. Did your father ever talk about James Morris? She asked. All the time, the daughter said. It haunted him. He said Morris died saving him. Said Morris pushed him out of the way and took the bullet meant for Hayes. Said he took Morris's Bible to remember him by, but lost it in the fighting. Spent years trying to find it. Wanted to give it to Morris's family. Never could. I have it, Sarah said quietly. The woman on the phone started crying. 2 months later, Sarah stood in a cemetery in Pittsburgh. James Morris's parents were long dead. No siblings, no wife, no children. He died at 21 and left no one behind. But the Army had finally given him a memorial stone. Not a grave, just a marker, a place to remember. It read, PFC James Morris, 82nd Airborne, gave his life for his brothers, September 17, 1944. Sarah placed the Bible at the base of the stone. Inside, she'd written a new message under the old one. This saved Robert Mitchell on September 18, 1944. Robert carried it for 70 years. He couldn't save you, but you saved him. And he never forgot. Next to her stood Sergeant Hayes' daughter and Robert Mitchell's family. They'd all come. all of them carrying the weight of a story that had waited 70 years to be told. The Bible sat there in the grass, the bullet hole still visible, still clean, still a testament to the split-second difference between life and death. Sarah had tried to donate it to a museum. They'd wanted it. But she'd changed her mind. Some things weren't meant to be behind glass. Some things were meant to rest. So she'd had it sealed in a protective case and buried it next to the marker. Let James Morris and his Bible finally be together. The pastor spoke, said something about sacrifice, about greater love having no man than this, about laying down your life for your friends. Sarah barely heard it. She was thinking about Robert Mitchell walking out of church 50 years ago, about the weight he'd carried, about the Bible in his attic he couldn't bear to open, but couldn't bear to throw away. After the service, Hayes's daughter approached her. "Thank you," she said. "My father died 5 years ago, but he would have wanted this. He never stopped looking for that Bible." Sarah nodded. "Why did Robert have it, if your father lost it?" The daughter pulled out a letter, old, yellow. "I found this in my father's things after he died. It's from Robert Mitchell, 1946. He wrote to my father, said he'd found the Bible in a field hospital. Said a medic had pulled it off a dead German soldier who'd looted it. Said he took it back. Said he wanted to return it to Morris's family but couldn't find them. Asked my father for help. My father wrote back. Told him to keep it. Said Morris would have wanted that." Sarah took the letter. Read it. The handwriting matched the message inside the Bible. Robert had found it, had tried to do the right thing, and when he couldn't, he'd kept it, carried it, let it save him, and spent 70 years wondering if he deserved to be saved. The funeral home had given Sarah a box of Robert's personal effects. She'd gone through it the night before, found his dog tags, found a Purple Heart he'd never told anyone about, found a photograph of him and another soldier, both in jump gear, both smiling. On the back, in Robert's handwriting, "Me and James, Holland, day before." She'd brought the photograph to the cemetery, placed it in the protective case with the Bible before they sealed it. Let them be together. 2 young men who'd jumped out of planes into hell. One who'd died, one who'd lived, and a Bible that had failed one and saved the other and carried the weight of both for 70 years. Sarah drove home in silence. The rain had started again. She thought about thrift stores, about how you never knew what you were buying, about how $5 could unlock 70 years of silence, about bullets and Bibles and the razor-thin line between surviving and not. When she got home, she found one more thing in Robert's box, a letter, addressed to James Morris's parents, never sent, dated 1945. She opened it carefully. The ink had faded, but the words were clear. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Morris, I am writing to tell you about your son, James. He saved my life. I carry his Bible every day. It saved me too. I don't know why I lived and he didn't. I don't know why his Bible stopped a bullet for me but not for him. I only know that I owe him everything, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that gift. Your son was a hero. I will never forget him." Robert had written it, but never sent it. Couldn't find the address, maybe, or couldn't find the courage. Either way, it had sat in a box for 80 years. Sarah folded it carefully and put it back. Some letters weren't meant to be sent. Some words were meant to be carried. The Bible in the cemetery would rest now, the bullet hole still there, the message still visible. This saved me. I couldn't save him. The story of 2 soldiers and the 3 inches of leather and paper that stood between one man and eternity. James Morris had carried it into battle. It hadn't saved him. Robert Mitchell had carried it out. It had. And 70 years later, a woman in a thrift store had bought it for $5 and brought it all home. Some things are meant to be found. Some stories refuse to stay buried. And sometimes, the things we think are worthless turn out to be priceless. If you believe these stories deserve to be remembered, join us. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor. because every soldier, every sacrifice, every bullet that didn't quite reach its mark deserves to be honored.